everybody. First of all, this is our, I think, third time, maybe third time running LOCS. We've been here from the beginning. But anyway, thank y'all for having us. Coming to Boston is always awesome. Somehow we get to duck all the racist, crazy bullshit and come into this cocoon of love every time we come out here, so we always have a really dope experience. But again, my name is Ryann Holmes. This is my buddy, my homeboy, my bro, my kin, my BFF, Chino, and we're members of the Bklyn Boihood collective. We've been in existence since 2009, and just to kind of give you an idea of who we are and what we're about before we go into our presentation. Oh yeah, can y'all see this okay? Should we dim the lights?
Yeah, dim the lights.
Don't dim the lights.
So here's our working mission, and we say it's working because we're constantly revisiting it, trying to figure it out. And right now, people have told us that the language in there is really confusing, so we're working on it. But you'll kind of get the gist. We're a collective that champions healthy masculinity, intersectionality of identities, and anti-misogyny for boys of color all over the world. And we do that through a number of different ways, one of which is a visual campaign that we've been doing since 2010, and it's the Bklyn Boihood calendar. This was such a dope project, and it was something that we didn't even expect to kind of take off as it did, but it's literally like a visual presentation of beautiful, amazing human beings that you get to look at and be affirmed by and all those things for 365 days of the year. And this calendar has traveled all over the world to so many different countries, and it's just been a really cool project for us to work on. But it just kind of speaks to our mission to kind of bring forth positive visibility and empowerment for queer and trans people of color on the masculine spectrum. So here's the crew. It is a little light, so you can't really see us. But right now we have 5 collective members. Me and Chino are both based in Brooklyn. Zaire, who's actually on the cover, is a Bostonite, sort of. Goes to law school at Northeastern. Word. Northeastern, whatever. And is in law school there. Jackie lives in upstate as a singer-songwriter. Outside of Bklyn Boihood, I'm the community programming director for a Black Arts Museum called Mokata. And I'll let Chino, you say like a couple words about who you are.
Okay, just a few. So I'm Chino. I'm outside of Bklyn Boihood. I'm also the project coordinator for an organization called the Center for New Leadership or Urban Solutions. We're an organization that works on criminal and juvenile justice issues, but besides issues, what we do is work on people.
And your dad.
These are my sons. That's Krishna and Chino Jr.
He's really shy, so. And they travel everywhere with us, which is dope. They get to kind of be really inundated in what we're doing. They're with us every single day, all day. Me and Chino also work together at the Center for New Leadership. So I work there too. We just be together all the time,
right?
Doing everything. They're with us all the time, and it's cool because they get to experience stuff like this, and hopefully they will grow up to be amazing young men that will treat women with respect and carry masculinity in ways that are responsible. So another way that we try to reach people is through our our online platforms. We're all over social media, everywhere. Have an active website and blog that y'all should check out. And we also make our own merchandise. This is just here's some of the sweatshirts that we do. But we kind of just come from like a really like DIY kind of, let's do everything and create everything from the ground up. And all of these things that we do support all of our other initiatives. So the parties that we throw, in addition to the merchandise that we sell and the calendars, like all of those things allow us to be able to do stuff like come to LOCS and present, or just be human beings so we continue to carry out this work. And yeah, here's a little picture of the last party that we threw called Black Love. And the parties are a really cool thing because they're dope, they're really fun, but they also kind of give people a place to really just be self and be themselves and party in the atmosphere where they don't have to worry about bouncers fucking with them, earmuffs, or like, you know, destructive things happening, and like we do our best to create safe spaces. Last time we had the anti-violence project there on site to kind of talk to people if they were harassed or anything like that happened at the party. So we continually try to create that while at the same time just giving you a hell of a night so you can, you know, be with your people and celebrate being queer and weird and beautiful and black and all those other things. And the babies. I just put that up here in case I was boring people. You can be like, oh. And no matter what, the presentation would be awesome. Anyway, okay, so today the presentation that we're talking about is Undoing Masculinity. And there's so many things that we want to like highlight and cover and talk about. And here's a few like buzzwords that I hope come up. Black masculinity, we're going to touch on masculine privilege, self-care, power, street harassment, community, gender justice, love, and breaking down the void. So, self-responsibility. This is something that we in Bklyn Boihood are constantly trying to explore within ourselves, and then in that process push forth what that means to the rest of the world so people can kind of go through their own processes. But essentially, like, what it means to be someone who is queer, trans, and on the masculine spectrum, you have to understand and be accountable to your actions and acknowledge what masculine privilege is. If you don't, you're walking through the world mad foul, I'm sure. And there's a lot of ways that, you know, we can kind of acknowledge the privileges that we do have and use them in ways that help to uplift our sisters and other people in community. And just to kind of open it up to the floor, is anybody cool with giving their version of what they believe masculine privilege is?
Not everybody at once.
And I'm comfortable with silence. I know somebody in the room can talk about it.
You know, so that's a tough question, I think, for me, because one of the reasons I think I enjoy this class is I really am very uneducated about Bklyn Boy and Boston Boy. This is something I have discussed with another friend of mine, but the first thing I think on masculinity, I think, first thing part of mine is the white male, who has the ultimate privilege over everyone. And so from this conversation I had, I'm actually more interested in y'all's explanation of what masculine privilege is. I come from I don't know. And my mind is very open to explaining the views on masculine privilege.
We're going to explore that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't have a verbal definition, but I guess an example is when you're sitting on a train and, you know, you're kind of taking up your own space, and then maybe someone who's more masculine sits next to you, and they sit back and they spread their legs into your space, maybe their arm comes back, it's all up on your shoulder, and it's an entitlement to take up space in the world. And this may be a negative kind of connotation. I know that there's a lot of very positive masculine traits that I certainly enjoy.
Yeah.
But that's what comes to mind is like how much space you're comfortable taking up.
Word.
So
Maybe one more person can speak on it.
I don't know whether I have the right definition, but certainly in this community, I think there's a piece about perception. So as a masculine-centered person, you may be perceived as definitely as part of this community, whereas if you're a more feminine-centered person, that sometimes you're overlooked or overshadowed or assumed to be straight. So in this space, I guess that's how we define it.
Word. All very, very real perspectives. I think one of the things, like, and you could jump in and out as you want to, one of the things that kind of helped me grasp this whole concept, because a lot of it, when you're a boy of color, or growing up, when you're in a situation where you don't feel like you have privilege or benefit or anything to stand on, it's hard to kind of find where you're powerful sometimes when you're not, when nobody is kind of telling you that or uplifting you throughout your entire life, right? But there's a vast difference from that and from what we're talking about. And something that helped me to understand that was to just acknowledge the spaces where I did feel that I could take up space, or I did have privilege in doing that, or in the ways that I can even walk from my house to the train without being catcalled on the street 20 times. You know what I'm saying? Or when I speak to a man or whatever, he acknowledges that I'm speaking to him for whatever reason. But if I'm with my partner who's a femme or identifies that way, it's almost as if she's invisible. You know what I mean? So there's all these little kind of ways that I feel like have taken me, and still, you know, we're always constantly kind of trying to unpack these things. But just really understanding that, like, privilege is something that, you know, all of us have access to in a particular way, and we can't be so quick to be like, no, I don't do that, that's not me, that makes me feel like a bad person, whatever. The work is to really, like, think about the ways that you do, you know, access privilege and be accountable to people, so that you're not squashing other people for something that you benefit from, for just being who you are, you know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. You want to talk? I feel like I'm just... You know what I mean? Appreciate the affirmation. It's hard. Everybody's looking at me. You know, I'm just trying to think. Like, one of the examples I often think about street harassment, because it's something that I feel like, and we're gonna talk about it even more. But it's just a really kind of clear way. Go.
I think one of the examples that I use with Boys of Baltimore is not even as extreme as street harassment, but getting away with little things. So the example that I use is that I planned a terrible bowling fundraiser for Boys of Baltimore. And we have someone that does events. I suck at it, and this boy does an awesome job. They were not available for that bowling event, so I put it together, slapped it together. And when folks came, it was like, oh, Bakari, you're not good at planning events.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do it. It's okay that you didn't have balloons or cake or a lot of essential, you know, pieces to this puzzle. But because of the masculine privilege, it was kind of like, oh, we didn't expect that of you. In the same way that had a femme planned that activity, she would have been called every raggedy under the sun, because she wasn't worth her salt, right? She wasn't able to put together an event with all of these essentials. So because of the masculine privilege, it was like, oh, you get a pass for not executing something the way that you should have or could have.
I think for me, I think one of the most healthiest internal ways that I can really understand my masculine privilege, being a trans man of color, is exploring my femininity and what that really means inside myself, and being comfortable with that and understanding that and embracing that in a real way. And I think also as a father, gives open space and room. Like I tell my sons all the time, you know, as you grow up and become men, if that gender doesn't fit you, I'll embrace you whatever gender you portray, right? Or want to be. And, you know, I try not to pigeonhole them to different roles that are perceived as masculine. Like, we got a rule in the house. I don't care if you fall down 3 flights of steps and break your leg. Don't cry. Your feelings hurt? Let that all out. Just let it all out.
You gotta let
your
them cry
body,
and break their leg.
No, they gonna be good on the physical game. Because the world got this way about kicking you down on the physical level, especially when you live in a community that's completely brutalized and traumatized, and you gotta run to save your life, and being brown is obviously a crime. But we do not tell our male young people to embrace their emotions. We tell them to push that to the side. Your feelings are hurt, suck it up. No, I don't care about your legs. I probably told you to stop playing on the steps anyway. Your feelings is hurt, I'm gonna let you cry, I'm gonna let you get that all the way out. Christian is so sensitive. Like Zaire, who, you know, we live together as well. I know, it's a big family, right? So we live together as well, and Zaire's leaving, and his little eyes are getting red, and they're watering up. So he's a very sensitive kid, and I embrace that. And I also try to, you know, make sure that they're not, you know, with a kid it's kind of different, right? Because, you know, besides doing this work for adults and trying to change the way our communities, you know, are loving each other, right? We try to plant seeds so they can grow up in, like, to tall oak trees and not weeds that suck the life out of everything else that's good, right? Which happens a lot in our communities, unfortunately. So I try to, like, balance it in terms of the spaces that they're in, right? And who they're around, making sure that they're around a lot of healthy masculine figures, because I can't control their environment all the time. They're gonna always see the dude who's like yelling at their girl, smacking their girl, or something like that, right? And my oldest son, you know, be like, why is he hitting girls, Daddy? Is he a punk? You know what I'm saying? So, like, already understands what's happening, and because they're children, they're gonna get into fights, right? So what happens when you're 7 years old, 8 years old, and a little girl hits you, right? You block your face and get the hell out of there. That's what you do. You do one of these and keep it moving, right? So, you know, I think that for me, you know, being a part of like Bklyn Boihood and having that forefront, because I mean, I would like to think I'm progressive, I would like to think I'm enlightened, but at the same time I'm human. So I'm not afraid to be checked. There's nothing wrong in saying I'm sorry and understanding that and like embracing that, because it just makes you a better person. You know what I'm saying?
So, just to kind of bring it back to self-responsibility, checking masculine privilege, having to understand how to be accountable, ensures that we don't disrespect or undermine femininity and femme identity, because we are living in a world that breeds hatred for it. Like it's rare that that people are uplifting femininity, especially in black women and blackness. It's just absolutely not happening. Also, examining the roles that we choose to play, actively not being pressured by the problematic constructs of masculinity, like aggressiveness or cheating on your girlfriend or any of those kinds of things. And we kind of touched on it. We'll look into that when we talk about street harassment some more. Self-responsibility is self-defined and exudes confidence. It accepts and respects each other's identity without forcing boys to act in ways that are familiar, stereotypical, and or normal. I.e., be yourself, do you think? And self-care, all day, every day. This is something that we struggle with a lot, but I feel like we've all kind of improved and support each other. But we have to remember, especially as people of color, and we can't dig this in enough, that caring for ourselves. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it's self-preservation, and that's an act of political warfare. If we don't uphold ourselves, uphold each other, we won't be here. And we can't do this work.
Yo, just really quickly, and also I think what's really unique, and I don't find a lot in like masculine spaces, like we really love each other. Like we'll massage each other, we'll get our nails done. It'd be a love fest all day. I love you, bro.
All day.
All day, right?
Text from the morning till night.
Right. Me and Zaire work together for 8 hours and come home and sit in each other's face for another 6 hours.
And then I come over.
And then, right, so it just, and it's good. It's like really good to like feel affirmed and loved by your bros. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't happen a lot in masculine communities. And I'm a little bit older than other collective members. I'm 33, so, and I'm from Flatbush, Brooklyn, where... Yes. You're going to do already, right? So, coming from a community that's primarily like West Indian and Caribbean, and like having such real bouts of like homophobia and being masculine-centered, you know what I'm saying? You put that guard up, and you put this exterior, but I'm like a teddy bear, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? I be want to cry, you know what I mean? Like, my feelings be hurt, you know what I'm saying? So like, having that space to like go through that, because that, when you keep that in, bottled in, it's like a cancer, it festers, you know what I'm saying? And that's the energy that you put out to the rest of the world, and it's like a very nasty energy, as opposed to like, getting a hug from Ryann, and like, it's gonna be okay, you know what I'm saying? So having that space is a lot of self-care, and while we might not do that self-care that we should for ourselves all the time, but we damn sure do it for each other, you know what I'm saying?
So what it means for us, taking the time to enjoy ourselves and relax, and actually enjoy the things we like to do. That sounds simple, but think about how much time you actually do that. Using community resources to take care of our physical and mental being. And like Chino was just talking about, checking in with each other, communicating comfortably about anything from a rash on your foot to questions about sex, which is another thing that boys sometimes just don't talk about. Right. Just won't talk about. But we talk about it.
Sure. I don't think there's anything we don't talk about.
Yeah. It's just good, because sometimes you just don't know. And you may have been doing that just all wrong. And then just like really trying to practice consistent self-care physically, we be trying to stay in the gym, we be trying. Mentally, emotionally, we wrote that that's so critical, because it's just so critical that we take care of our emotional health. That we check in and try to really grasp our understanding as to why we do the things that we do, and where those things are coming from, and how we can be responsible for our feelings. So just really being real about that, and just, you know, figuring out ways to take care of yourself mentally and emotionally is so, so important. And just the foundation of everything else. And socially, which, you know, we all need too. So just to kind of pivot a little bit, we want to talk a little bit about street harassment for a couple reasons. A, it just really, to me, is a really good way to break down masculine privilege and masculinity, as well as understand how femininity has to interact with the world a lot of the times. So we basically just wanted to highlight our unique perspective on what street harassment looks like and does, because I think it's a really super important perspective to explore. And essentially it looks like misogyny, and it feels like violence to the women that we walk with. It looks like the characteristics of masculinity that are really problematic and ugly. All of those things that we were talking about, and that are a lot of times wrongly valued, and even valued more than other parts of ourselves. The femininity and masculine presenting people isn't uplifted a lot of times. Even the positive masculine traits aren't. But the most aggressive or most sexualized or possessive, like a lot of those brute, weird, kind of twisted ass ideas of what it means to be a man, leak through and become dominant because of patriarchy and all that other type of wild shit. Which brings us back to the white man you were talking about earlier. Street harassment is all of those things combined, and the other truth is that sometimes we are the perpetuators of street harassment. Trying to uplift all of those false senses of masculinity and manhood and maleness. And in an effort to really just embody all of that stuff, and Bklyn Boihood and a lot of boys and men around the world really want that shit to stop. It's definitely one of our goals to challenge just any false sense of masculinity and really uplift people to understand that they should love all of those other glorious parts of themselves. What's that, baby? Okay, thank you.
I might have to be quiet because you're probably going to say it right now. Because one of the things I find very difficult is when masculine people want to check the world on all that and don't check each other on some shit that's happening right there side by side. So I'll never forget, I just moved to Baltimore, living in my studio, and I heard all this commotion outside, and I'm nosy, I'm a look. So I look, and I see these two figures dressed in all black fighting in the streets. I mean, one's on the floor kicking up, one's swinging. Only to find out it's the chick on the ground and her dude. And he's kicking at her face and all this other stuff. And I mean, they were like wailing for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes before his homeboys even came out. And I'm like, everyone could hear that. And all they did was kind of pull him away and then let her walk in the street in the dark by herself. Didn't even support her. And so it's unfair, but I'm sitting here wondering, so what kind of conversation y'all had with this brother when y'all were big in the house? Or is it just like, you know, nigga, you need to calm down? And it's like, but why do you need to calm down? Is it because you're not taught that you can let these emotions out in another way? And so I find it very problematic whenever masculinity doesn't check other masculinity.
And that's essentially the whole, let's clap it up. It's done. That's the whole point, you know what I'm saying? And I've presented on this topic before, and I said to a room, and to this day it's the honest truth. There has not been a moment, let me just think, in my entire life that I've been with a partner and she's been in a situation and I've been there and not stood up for her. Just not gonna happen. And it's a complicated thing because you have to be real about, and a lot of times I put myself and her in even more danger. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm small, so I have to talk a lot of shit so that they respect me. You know, because that aggressive masculinity is what is valued in those moments, quite honestly. You know what I mean? So, but you're right. This is the actual problem does lie in the sound, and that's what we're going to talk about, in the silence especially.
And just as an example, we had a situation where me and Ryann check somebody who was completely abusing somebody close to us. You know what I'm saying? And when we did that, it was a conversation until homie invaded Ryan's personal space, and I just kind of had to like let him know that's not gonna happen. So it was out of love, though. Right, it was all a place of love. That critically happened, right? A little smack, a little headlock, and I talked to him for a minute. I told him I needed confirmation about how he was never gonna do this again, and when I got it, I let him go.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I was the biggest abuser ever.
Right.
Just in the world, right? And because...
And people have their different opinions on, they're like, oh, you can't be violence with violence, or you can't meet aggression with aggression. Yeah. But the truth of the matter is, we're in communities where we're literally managing violence a lot of the times. We can't escape. We can't be like, oh, we're PC now, so we don't fight no more. That's some bullshit. When people disrespect you, or when people get so out of line, sometimes a community, like Homeboy, I can't believe we even telling this group of people. But, you know, sometimes I gotta get jacked up. And I don't know, that's a controversial thing. We were removed from several spaces after that happened, because the way that it looked was just like, what do we hear? Bklyn Boihood jumped this dude. I was like, whoa, Chino single-handedly jumped without even throwing a punch. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, then you start thinking about, you know, how do we look now? You know what I'm saying? What do you take me for if you think I will come to a space and
jump somebody?
Like, fuck, I'm an adult.
Right.
I don't do that. You know what I'm saying?
And at the same time, what's the result though, right? So what is the person supposed to do who's in this situation? Call NYPD?
Right.
Because there's no immediate gratification to be had, right? You get an order of protection, like when they coming at you with a fist, you're gonna hold up the paper and that's gonna block you. So I feel like on some levels it's kind of like, you know, I call it real justice. We ain't even gotta call it restorative. It could just be real justice.
Because I bet you he didn't. He stopped stalking her.
Didn't call her not nary again. You know what I'm saying? It was clear that she had homie somewhere that was just not, and it wasn't even a critical, it could have been critical. This homie was on the floor. Me and Ryan didn't do anything, but I could have took it to a whole nother level. The dude was very much younger than me, and it was a spanking. Sometimes you need a tune-up like a car, just to put it back in perspective of where you're driving at. Because you're swerving in everybody lane. You know what I'm saying? So, and I feel like, the reason why I bring this up, because I feel like, to your point, sometimes when we do get checked, when we do check homie, and we're like, yo, you know what I'm saying? And yoke him up for what he did, and all of a sudden, in our communities, I feel like if it's a cis dude, it might be like, oh, you're doing the right thing. In our communities, in a politically correct space, and how we're doing everything perfect, then I'm a heathen, I can't come to no parties and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, for real? Really?
Had y'all checked that beforehand, I wouldn't have asked.
Right. The dude has been organizing in this community for 14 years, never really had any incidents, and because that check told me, now we're jumping folks. You know what I'm saying? But the response that we got from, like, you know, femmes of color were, like, very positive. You know what I'm saying?
Looks like he's knocking that experience.
How much do you like? I have a question in terms of like street harassment with cisgendered men. Like, how do you navigate that? Because I was in a situation about 2 years ago. Where, you know, I'm from Newark, so I'm not backing down to any. I'm not backing down from anybody. I mean, I don't care who you are. So the dude, you know, I was being nice. I was being a good Samaritan. He's like, yo, can I use your phone? I was like, yeah. So he's really not giving me my phone back. So I'm like, yo, give me my phone. We exchanged words. And then all of a sudden, he like, as I was walking off, he was like, yo, you got a razor? I was like, what? No. Like, and then he snuck me. And then I was like, yeah. And it was like a bunch of other men on the street. And I was just like asking for help. And I was like, no, don't get me into that. It was just crazy. So it's kind of like, you know, as a masculine woman, but more so as a woman, I had to ask myself, like, did I make the right decision? You know what I'm saying? Did I stand up for myself? And it kind of like in your mind, you emasculate yourself and say, well, do I need to bow down and be submissive to the cisgender man who is stronger than me? And he actually could have killed me, you know? So like, how do you work around that?
I can handle it. I mean, because to be like 100% honest, also get caught up in the, like I said, because I'm small, you know what I'm saying? I get caught up in the, I have to puff up my chest too in order to meet you where you are.
Yeah.
And I can't even advocate and say that that's always the right thing, because I don't want to perpetuate that shit. But at the same time, like, if I'm in a situation alone, it might play out a little differently. But if I feel like I'm in a position where I'm with someone, especially a femme, then oftentimes I'll choose to meet it exactly where it is. And a lot of times, like, I guess one of my strategies, I know I'm kind of nice with it, but again, I'm small. So I know that my most powerful thing is my mouth.
Yeah.
A lot of times I can talk the situation at least into a place where we're at least having a conversation, to the point where I have stories from me walking down the street with my girl at the time. It was my birthday. This dude harassed us for like 2 blocks. I literally stopped and turned around and I was like, yo, it's my fucking birthday. You're ruining my birthday. Just like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? And I explained to him, I was like, what you're doing right now is fucking my day up. It's fucking her day up. It's harassment. It's not good. It's annoying. We don't want this. This does not make her feel good. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I don't even want to be talking to you right now. You old enough to be my nasty ass uncle. Like, we went into it for a minute to the point where, like, and that's another thing. It's exhausting. It got so exhausting that me and her, I'm in the stop, maybe about 10 minutes from the A train. We would take a cab. I was like, I can't do it today, baby. Can't do it. Because it was exhausting, but the people that I did check the first time, you better believe if we walked past them again, it was nothing. You know? Another story where, yeah, it almost did get critical, where a dude got up in our face or whatever, and I was in his face like, nigga, now what? You know what I'm saying? Like, it was very close, and my girl at the time was kind of just like, okay, I'm scared now. Like, let's stop. And I didn't know what he was capable of. His lips was a little ashy.
Anything happened.
Sometimes it gets dangerous.
Yeah, it does.
I guess the fighter in me wants to be like, your jaw good, you straight?
Yeah.
Get back out there. You know, but the other part of me is like, you have to be careful, you have to protect yourself, and make those calls. Like, you from Newark, so you're vigilant. You know what I'm saying? Trust them instincts. You had a feeling about that dude with your phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just really kind of, and that's how I think I navigate. I tell people this shit almost like a joke, but I feel like it's serious. I feel like I can look somebody deep in their pupils and tell right away if they're a punk or not. I know for sure if this nigga's gonna hit me. I feel like I can tell, and I don't know, that's like, whatever. So, again, my advice might be, but that's just the truth.
Yeah.
First off, Chino, you come to any party of mine. But I also want to talk about, Debree and I coming in this morning, we're talking about the whole thought around masculine centered women and feminine women being out together and realizing it's a us, not you and I. So when this situation comes up, you know, I'm big on, you know, because I've come to realize being, you know, dating masculine centered women that those issues come up and that I got your back and you got mine.
Yeah.
Like, I whoop some ass too, but it don't mean because
Right.
of them that
Right.
I won't fight.
Right.
And I think that doesn't always happen. It's like playing this role,
Right.
like, woe is me. It's like, you need to grow up. You need to be able to do that because I think it leaves our sisters, our boys out there thinking that we can come back.
Well,
dating, but just friends.
in
You
a
know,
sense,
it's like,
but you know what one thing that's interesting, like, before it even gets to like that almost physical place, a lot of times, like if I'm with a partner and she's literally saying, no, nigga, no, please, no, get the fuck out my face, no, 100,000 times, he's like, yeah, I'm saying no, mom, what's up? Like, it's like not even nothing. And as soon as I say something, it's a different conversation. So a lot of the times, if I feel like it's about to happen, I'll be like to my partner, I want to speak for you. I understand that you have a voice in this situation. I swear to God, this is not the stance that it's not about to be this piss and fight over whose is this, it's mine. But we both know that he's a fucking moron and probably not going to listen to you. And so that's why usually, like, I will take that on in the beginning. But I know for sure if it got down to it, everybody's involved. I don't think. I would be asked out.
I got this rule, right? So when I'm with a woman and a dude is like harassing her, as long as you don't step in her 2 feet of personal space, we good. because she's grown and she's gonna voice that. And just like, you know, I think because of my masculine privilege, I've never been in a fight that I lost. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Nah, nigga, that's just because you confused.
right.
I got that too, nigga. I got my ass.
You know what I'm saying? And the only fight that I can think about that I lost where I was with a femme-identified woman and she was like physically hit was with a bunch of boys, like 11 boys jumping.
Boys meaning,
Like queer,
okay.
of color boys, and bust my eye entire open though. But the only reason they got that is because when it hit her and I heard her scream, it forced me to get out of my zone of where I was at. You know what I'm saying? And then I had to put my politics, you know, kind of like where my eye was. Police showed up on the scene immediately, and it was over. But see, I also, as much as I'm a political organizer, part of Bklyn Boihood, and I'm trying to like cultivate this love, I'm also from Flatbush, Brooklyn, and the street is very prevalent. You know what I'm saying? So before the night was out, I knew where everybody lived. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't a thing. And interesting, I took them camping, right? I took the people who bust me in my eye camping, because it was 11 of y'all. All y'all can do is bust me in my eye, I'm winning all day. You know what I'm saying? I'm winning all day. So we went camping and I got an apology. And for me, that was it. You know what I'm saying? But I think it really is about feeling where your comfort zone is. And sometimes, depending on the level of threat of physical harm, you might have to stay out of your comfort zone. You know what I'm saying? Your girl might have to, you know, knuckle up. And you know what I'm saying? And I don't sleep on anybody. Woman, dog, child, everybody's suspect right now. That 3-year-old going, right? So, you know, and it might be a situation of like being able to call for help. And I'm like, I know Ryan's gonna call for help. It ain't gonna be NYPD. It's gonna be CHINO. And I'm coming with everybody. You know what I'm saying?
So just to wrap up all these points that I feel like we're coming up in this conversation, one of the worst and most scary parts of street harassment is the way it's sanctioned by other men. The noise, the catcalls, the curses, and the peanut gallery egging it all on. All those sounds are horrible and horrifying, but almost worse when no one calls it out. Part of masculine privilege is a space that has to perform however it wants to, in almost any space without being checked. As boys of color who carry masculinity as part of our identity, as part of our job, to use the space we have to be as verbal and vocal and in an opposing way as possible. Bklyn Boihood in particular is making this noise, the other type of sound, the sound of accountability through our parties, our language, our media, us being here right now and talking about this, etc. But essentially, what we're talking about is a larger issue. We're talking about the safety of our women, our universe, our world's women, you know what I mean? And the safety of our women means culturally addressing the widespread casualness of rape culture. And I feel like street harassment is one mighty tiny drop or form of this. But it's so normalized, y'all, it's sickening.
Yeah.
Chino and I also work with young men and women, mainly young men, all of color by circumstance in a program at his job. And all of the people are 18 to 24 on probation. And we talk about this type of stuff all the time. You know what I mean? And just to understand that the perspective that these young men have about women is coming from the most illest places ever. It's coming from pop culture, it's coming from rap music, it's coming from how their boys treat their girls on the street, it's coming from what's happening in the home. And it all like just really laughs off rape culture like it's no thing. Until we kind of make it real and break it down for them, like what this shit actually means, and they're like, oh no. I don't hate women, that's not what I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, really, the safety of our women is really gonna rely on turning this into a conversation that involves masculine-centered people, families, children, and community leaders. We all have to be a part of this. And it's about understanding that safe and protected bodies of women and girls mean better, more equitable communities, literally. Because the most beautiful thing is to imagine a revolution that will be sparked from creating safe spaces. Think about your own personal self, you know, and the places that you've been able to thrive, or, you know, the power that you've been able to hold from being affirmed or being in places where you're protected. So part of our mission is just working to keep to, you know, trying to create something like that.
I was wondering, in terms of your like educational piece, do you feel like there's a role to for you to be challenging and talking to white cisgender men who are heterosexual, or is that, because I know it takes a lot to do some of those things, but do you feel like that's something that you also feel connected to that needs to happen, or do you feel like that's the role of white men to go talk to white men?
My first reaction was to start going like this when you was asking the question. And then I started thinking about it, because it's already a challenge to be existing in here and standing and have the energy in my body to be speaking to my people. Because of patriarchy and the fact that I have to work like a fucking psycho. So no, I don't feel like it's our responsibility. Though I'm not mad if, like I said that I did this presentation before and it was for a room full of white folks, mostly white women. And the one thing that I did leave and feel happy about is that I was able to check the fact that that whole rest of the event, they were villainizing black men like the entire time. Like as if white men don't harass women on the street or take part in any of these shenanigans that we're talking about. So to bring that and just say that, I could have just left. I could have said that and just left. And I would have been happy, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, but nah, I'm not interested in that. You can speak to it. I'm interested in, you know, speaking to my folks and uplifting us because we're broken and hurt. You know, we need this. We need to heal our communities, and this is part of the work.
I'm not, if a white, cis, male, hetero group reached out to me for a workshop, never gonna happen.
I mean, if they paid us a lot of money.
Just a lot of money. But I think not even an interpersonal level, so I do a lot of work around policy, so frequently enough I'm sitting at these tables where it's either you know, multi-million-dollar foundations or it's policymakers, right? And I'm talking about all of these juvenile justice issues, criminal justice issues, specifically around formerly incarcerated individuals, folks who are still incarcerated, and things like that, and I'm negotiating that already. And I have no problems calling them out on their racist male bullshit, like in a way, in their language, so they can understand it. So they can't just write me off as, I'm the angry, I don't know what gender that is, person. Keep it moving on me, right? So, and I've done that with white women as well. I got a white woman I work with, and I called out on her racist shit because she was talking about how I'm being violent over the phone. Because I'm being assertive, I'm being violent, and how it's so hard for her to hear that. Just so hard for you to hear about, talking about my young people who look like me. Or
your own experience.
Really? My own experience about solitary confinement? Like, you are hurt behind that? When I spent 260 days in solitary confinement, you are hurt. Okay, you're racist, I'm gonna need you to have a seat. Right? Right, all the seats, just sit down and simmer. So, and you know, me knowing that we work together, I said, hey, let's have some tea. And let's da-da-da. But, because, you know, she drinks tea. I'm not just being a dick. She actually drinks tea. And she never responded back to me, and I know why. It's not because of that conversation. It's because what I was saying on the phone was actually correct. And you know what? You need to reread your book because you didn't read the passages right, and you fucked up the law. And I was right. Heaven forbid, the person of color is actually right about some shit that you think you've already learned in the book. So, and I got reaffirmed by other white folks, some men. She had all the seats and didn't want to have it because she was embarrassed, right? And if you was worth anything, if you was really trying to be radical, you know, white people think, well, I'm radical, like they've arrived. Like, you know, I'm here now. I ain't racist no more. I'm here. No, it's a constant thing. You'll never not be doing this work because, you know, did you wake up in America and it wasn't racist one day? If that didn't happen, that one needs you to keep doing the work, right? If they paid us like thousands, I mean, it would have to be 10,000 at least, right? To come out and talk to them for 2 hours. You're getting 2 hours and that's it? Maybe, but I don't think it's my job to liberate my oppressor. I will acknowledge on some level, because you are a slave to the master mindset that you have and this megalomania bullshit that you try to play out, I will acknowledge that you're oppressed on some levels too. But I ain't trying to free you when I'm shackled the fuck up. You're gonna slow me the fuck down when I'm trying to get through these woods, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not even gonna, like, give you the right to do that shit. Because we know you can't run, you know what I'm saying? That's why you shoot the niggas, because you can't run.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, because we didn't hear from Saturday.
You may have addressed this, I went to the restroom, but how do you combat when you come across cis male black men or, you know, just fully identified trans black men who are still perpetuating the rape mentality and who are systemically and fully embraced in the domestic violence world. Rape, you know, that's the ultimate oppression and suppression of women, and feel like, you know, because I have transitioned into this respect, I can still be oppressive. How do you guys work within that? How do you combat those ideas and that mentality? I'm very curious.
Yeah, I mean on a one-on-one basis, because the other thing to note is Bklyn Boihood HQ is it's my apartment, but it's a space where people are in and out all the time. It's safe. People come in and talk about whatever. Some of the times people come in and they say really ill, terrible, fucked up shit. Earmuffs. And you know, essentially it's just about having the courage to like confront people and say something in those moments to check, like, yo, even just at the party I'm jumping all around, that's how my mind works. At the party we just had, we were having a do your best orgasm contest, right?
The winner got a free dildo.
Yeah. And one of the young, I believe, trans men got up and was like, oh, you know how bitches be, whoa, in front of hundreds of, I was like, you're so disqualified, you're off, you're done, you know what I mean? And it's like, snatch the mic, check it right then and there, we don't call women bitches here, that's not what happens. 200 people clap, you know what I'm saying? And I said, but I love you though, and I would love to talk to you more about this after. We're not kicked out, but I got to break something down to you because you're not understanding that this isn't a space for that.
2 minutes later, the cis dude, tell him what the cis dude.
What did he say?
The cis dude gets on the stage, but I'm the only guy here.
Yeah.
And Ryan is like, no, you're not, and I'm going to need you to have a seat as well.
It's just like a constant thing. Like, as much as, it's so crazy because it's so hard to take somebody's whole mindset and like flip it around, you know what I mean? But on a one-on-one basis, it's really about just like having the courage to check those things in that moment and have those hard conversations. And also understand that you may not be able to hold on to folks. Like, some people can't actually hear this type of shit and be cool with you. Like, I have homies that were down with Bklyn Boihood, and I'm going at them on Twitter because I'm like, yo, you're talking nonsense, son. Like, this is wild crazy. Like, why you blowing my spot up? We cool. We not that cool right now. Cause you like, you know what I mean? So just, it's work all day, constantly. Like, we check our guys all day. They already know certain things you just don't say around us. True. And if they say it, they're like, oh, my bad, my fault. I didn't mean to do that. You know what I mean? So just, I don't know, like, that's kind of the way we do it on an individual level. And then just being who we are, and then on our missions to try to achieve this, like vocalizing what that process is and trying to document it and trying to be in places like this talking to folks and trying to talk about this kind of shit at a party. Like, where is that happening? Right. Nowhere. You know what I'm saying? So those are kind of some of the ways that we...
And we unpack it really well. Like, what we do is give the historical perspective, especially to our young men of color, where this comes from. You know, the word bitch, how we treat our women. Like, historically, where did you learn this, right? Because you just wasn't born with it, right? So put in a historical perspective that, you know, they can relate to on an everyday level, right? And then, as much as possible, you know, challenging them on it. You know what I'm saying? And I think, while you don't get to see the full oak tree, you definitely plant a seed, and hopefully that along the way that gets nurtured. I don't think there's a blanket way to kind of address that, besides like, you know, putting stuff on our blog and whatnot.
Yeah. And it's not just beating people over the head with you're bad, you're wrong, you're terrible, but like, this is a way you can love better.
Right.
Like, if women in your life or women are the most important to you on the planet, and you love women so much and all these other things, like, be about that, you know, and don't think of the ways that, you know, you deal with women in your life as something that's supposed to assert or affirm your masculinity. Like, understand that these are people in your life that are divine, that you should be uplifting because they make you better. You know what I'm saying? So we try to come at it in a lot of different ways, and just, you know, the other way is we raising these guys. That's a community effort. So.
And that's what I was gonna say. I think, kind of to your point, in one breath, we're forgetting another part of the conversation is who are most often the time raising our boys, and also perpetuating those stories as other women, right? Because I think it's really powerful that we always want to have a conversation about why a Negro ain't doing what he's supposed to be doing when he's 26. Well, where he was when the boy was 6 months, right? And I think that everyone assumes that men, you know, masculine, whatever, should just know. But I'm like, we got taught too, and if we weren't teaching them, then whose fault is this really? And then I also think about the damage. So we have a friend who's self-identified as queer, dates women, and straight up was like, I mean, I would hate for my son to be a faggot. We're like, whoa, time out. You can't really say that to us. And so I'm sitting here saying, I'm like, and when your son grows up and he's gay, because you're calling the energy, then we're gonna, because you're calling it, then what's gonna happen is that now we've got to go back and do some work that should have well been done even with you before your even man child even got here. So I think that we have to also think about what responsibility we are playing and teaching. And you know, there's always these arguments, a woman can't raise a man or whomever, and I'm like, fuck off, okay, earmuffs. Because I'm so late with it, because I think that if we keep trying to make it sound as though people are taught by only one group of people, then we're always going to miss the conversation. Like, these cats are being taught by everyone in this room right now. So, you know.
I mean, I guess that's like, our angle is more to just keep digging into people's minds this concept of self-responsibility. Like, one thing that is for certain, or at least for me, is that every single day of my life I'm working on being a better person. Being a better boyfriend, a better daughter, a better uncle or auntie or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like it's definitely a community effort, but our position, coming from where we are, it's just important for us to perpetuate, you know, people really just looking inside, and, you know, because it starts with self. Every move, every change we want to see, this world that we imagine is going to start with every single individual, you know, and how we, like, I just recently started studying Buddhism, so this is about to be getting but it's literally about our human revolutions, and how all of those things are interconnected to the revolution that we're all a part of, you know what I mean? So it's a lot to it. I'm sorry, there was one other person that didn't we hear from, and then we're gonna come right back.
I mean, that might be a 2-point question, but in my job daily, how do you address the class bias or divide among women or men that identify as trans? And I bring this up because, you know, I have one job where I pass this particular housing complex or project, and there are a lot of women that come out that identify as butch or masculine that you would not know whether they're feminine or not. Well, I know. And they're with their partner, and their partner's 4 kids, and the groceries, and the baby carriage. I pick them up when they're going to work. I pick them up when they're going home. And they just seem to have this, I question community, like how would they fit into community? I know they would fit into my community, but I don't see them out in the community. I don't see them being embraced in the community. How do you pull them out of that role or encourage them to reach out to community when they've been absorbed into a community that wants to assume them as men, give them men responsibilities, and not acknowledge that somewhere in there is still a woman that wants to be acknowledged as a woman doing a man's job? I'm sorry, long question. So, like, how do you reach out to them? Do you reach out to them? Is it something that you're aware of as you do your work and as you organize?
I think by creating a space where they feel comfortable being themselves. And I think, you know, as Bklyn Boihood, we do that really well. You know, we open up Ryan's house in the headquarters to anybody that needs space to crash or whatever. And I think by the parties that we feel were very welcoming. But I think the question that you answer is kind of hard to unpack because I don't know that per se. You know that for the folks that you're dealing with, but I don't know if there's a woman out there who might be with her partner who got 3 kids and she like taking out the trash and bringing home the groceries and wants that womanhood acknowledged. I don't know if that exists. That would have to kind of be something that, you know, either I peep in our personal interaction or he or she tells me. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's hard, but I think creating just a community in general that will allow them to be expressive of course, the spectrum of all their gender identities. And, you know, just like sexuality, I believe gender is very fluid. You know what I'm saying? So I don't believe the way you looked in 1990, you have to look at 2014. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, you know, you can totally create a space where folks are comfortable with that. And I think I won't, see when you say a man's job, I can't subscribe to that. You know what I'm saying? I think if a job has to get done, the people who need to get it done need to get it done. Whether that might be taking out the trash or, you know, getting the projector up in the ceiling or fixing that door or, you know, doing my son's hair. He wears a ponytail. Their mother's not in their life in a really prevalent way, so I struggle every day trying to braid it and get it together, but I'm doing the best I can and I'm trying to get it done. You know what I'm saying? Some might say that's a woman's job. I like to say that's a parent's job.
Great.
And around the class, around just sort of, I don't know, I guess because even the members themselves in the collective come from so many different backgrounds. I think one way that we try to remain accessible, and that's why I kind of threw shade to our mission earlier, is in language some of the time. Like trying to not be too activist talky. Because I feel like when I came into these types of spaces, I was completely confused and really put off by all the acronyms and just words that were not in my vernacular or whatever, or, you know, I didn't go to school for these things or whatever, didn't have like, I wasn't educated around those things. So I think we try to like keep that in mind a little bit, but, you know, essentially it's just about the ways that we try to talk to people, and make it feel as human as possible, and the ways that we sort of open ourselves up to people, and the ways that we're honest about our own lives, and just kind of offer that vulnerability. And I feel like that kind of goes across a lot of different differences, and people feel like they can come in and be embraced, or at least that's what we hope. But that's just kind of the ways that we try to do it. And with this.
I'm gonna forget my question. I just want to ask is, do you guys do preventive, I mean, I know you guys go to the jails to talk to people about the violence that's already been committed against women, but do you try to do a little preventive outreach, like don't wait till it gets to that part? Because it really does bother me to know that there, I mean, I am not naive to the fact that there is a lot of hate crime going on and people getting beat down, and I know me, I've been arrested for the same stuff, so I know for me now, after 5 months of anger management, I have to learn how to diffuse the situation and realize, you know, they always ask me, what did you learn? And I'm like, well, I learned it's okay to be angry, just not to beat somebody up over it. You know what I mean? So, you know, it wasn't like 20 weeks for loss, but I think, I mean, even to speak on that, I was like, oh, she walked up, I say, I learned from me, even when I get angry, because I can go, you know, I always tell people I can go from nickel to nickel real quick, you know, real quick. You know what I mean? But I gotta learn how, I was gonna advise her that situations, I always try to, if you can do the best to diffuse the situation first, take that, because you know the cops will be quick to throw braces on.
Yeah.
I mean, quick.
Yeah, we definitely try to keep the cops not involved.
Yeah, you know, but even still, I mean, come on, it only takes this one other person
Yeah.
to look at y'all and everybody's going down.
That's true.
Everybody's going
Yeah.
down. And I'm the type of person, I would hate to see another, like the language.
No, it's okay.
Yeah,
It's okay.
I hate to see somebody, I'm always looking out for another person. I hate to see somebody go to jail.
Yeah.
Or some dumb crap.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know what
I think
So-
the ways that we try to be preventative were, more so show themselves in like spaces that we, you know, organize or whatever. So, for instance, with the parties, in the beginning we do a lot of announcements about, you know, the types of violence that can appear or things that we may not necessarily name as violence. Like it ain't no, you can't be grabbing people by the arm to show you didn't stop to talk to you. We don't want to hear none of that shit. So just kind of like, you know, mentioning a few examples of that, and then having organizations that are trained to deal with this type of thing, like Anti-Violence Project, they're in the space. We point them out at the beginning of the event, like if you're experiencing any of this or whatever. What? Yeah. Also, we did a whole collective did a training with the Anti-Violence Project about how to like hold safe spaces in diffuse situations like that. So like that everybody in the collective is trained to like prevent anything from escalating or whatever without relying on the police, because that is just, we be trying to avoid NYPD every second.
What suggestions do you have for situations where it's not a boy-femme scenario, it's a femme-femme, or it's a soft butch femme? Because a few months ago, like, we've encountered situations, or, I mean, I was probably the only one that realized it, where a lesbian couple's out and you run into a male person that is not respecting the fact that you are a couple, even though you said we are a couple, and they're being really persistent, and they're just ignoring the fact that you're telling them to step off.
Yeah.
And you kind of had to get rid of it. I kind of had, after about 10, 15 minutes, my voice got very deep, and my accent came out, and she says she met a whole new person because he was not listening at all. So, like, without having that masculinity privilege, when you're not presenting in a masculine way, how do you get it?
How do you get it?
Or how do you avoid that confrontation? Like, what do you do in situations like that?
Yeah, I don't even know that I have the answer 100%, but I know that I can direct you to resources that do have the answer. But I think, I'm trying to think.
What can I ask? Well, how did you do it?
He probably, I mean, we were in Trinidad, so he probably understood me because my accent came out. But he definitely, he no longer looked at me as a Yankee or American. He realized, okay, she's no longer speaking like she is just here on vacation. And she is now moved up to her level as I'm Trini, and I will punch you. I will forget all about the fact that I'm a girl, and we will be fighting here if you do not stop what you're doing.
Right.
So, I mean, not everybody has that.
Well, I think if you're in I've spent some time in Trinidad too, right? So I think it's a little bit different, right? Because it's another country, but I think that kind of like.
I'm sure you see that in Brooklyn too. Trini women
fight
men without
all the time.
thinking twice about it.
I think twice all the time. They're the Trini women. I'm just playing, right? So I think what you're saying. I think you gotta kind of like know your own comfortability levels, right? Because you can do that, and then a physical altercation comes to play, and then
your lightsabers.
Right, you know what I'm saying? So I really think it's about that, and I also think it's about, knowing. I mean, it sucks that women, I feel like, have to like take all of these like mental notes, like what's in their purse, where are they going, how they're gonna get home, do they have cab fare, like all of these things.
Sorry, the training you're doing.
Right, I'm doing training. I'm remembering my stuff. You know what I'm saying? But I think that stuff is real, like where you are, how comfortable you are in this location.
Safety plan.
Right, your safety plan.
So it's like, and I feel like a lot of women do this, or a lot of people in general do this, not even thinking about it.
Right, automatically.
Yeah, like knowing for certain that if you're going somewhere alone, you got a way to get about that situation immediately. If something were to happen, or having a little something in your purse. Pepper spray, mace it up, do whatever you gotta do to protect yourself. But I don't know. I guess the larger picture is it's so much work to do, and it feels enormous and scary and daunting and all of these things. But every person that I feel like can be enlightened, or every man in the street or boy or trans man or whoever that can kind of pick up on this, we're doing a little bit of something, so that's good.
Right. And I think even when you elevate, sometimes elevation is good, right? Your accent came off, the voice got deeper. I think also sometimes, what I do to men sometimes too is I talk real low to them.
Well, I started off in a very calm way, and then it got to the point where I said to, like I said to him, like, you know, I was a guy, we wouldn't even be having a conversation.
Right.
Because you wouldn't have even done that.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard. It's so frustrating because it's like you're just trying to get across to him something really simple. It's like just respect me as a human. That's all.
Right.
You know, and that's a frustrating thing when all he is he's barely hearing anything, and all he's hearing is threats to his masculinity, and he's embarrassed, and you know, he probably didn't think you was gonna kick it to him anyway. So he came at you with hatred. You know what I'm saying? So it's a tough thing.
So, I'm kind of jumping off the violence topic.
Word up.
And going more into sexuality as a boy.
Word.
So, I know just me being a boy, especially growing up in, in a more southern environment when I was trying to explore my sexuality, it's pretty much female, femme, or stud. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's nothing else.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. You know what I'm saying? So, moving up north, I can definitely say it's a little bit different when it comes to sexuality and how people identify with themselves. And I'm learning a little bit more about, different avenues of sexuality. But in general, as a boy or a stud or somebody, who's more on the masculine side, I found that there aren't that many, like for women, for women who have, more feminine women, there's more outlets for exploring their sexuality, but for studs or boys, none.
Right.
And you kind of have to talk with your friends, and even if you talk with your friends, let's say like, I remember one of my best friends came to me and was like, man, I think I'm into studs.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? You know what I'm saying? At first I was like, how do you mean? For a second I almost hurt, but then I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
This is okay. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I had to talk to myself about it, but I don't find like there's that many, avenues to talk about it. And, like, where do we go? And, you know what I'm saying? Do you guys have groups or, who do we
Come
talk
on
to?
past the house.
Yeah, no, that's
Right.
Yeah.
Tell them a story.
Oh, no.
Really quick. So I came out, I don't think it was ever in, but, just your little gay pride colors and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? So, and I was into studs, dude, you know what I'm saying? I thought masculine individuals are so sexy, yo. I just love to see all of that come together, right? I still do. But I couldn't get a date with a dude, you know what I'm saying? It just wouldn't happen, but all the feminine women were always in my face. So, you know what I'm saying? And I think that, seriously, I think that kind of curbed what I was attracted to. Because you hear no too many times, you're like, fuck that shit, I don't like you anyway. Right. You know what I'm saying? And then one day, the stud set me down, I was like, yo, we don't date each other, dude. And you know what? Because I didn't have like this huge queer community with all the rules about who they do and what happens. I didn't have that, so I was like really flying naturally. My first question was why? Like, why is that the case? You know what I'm saying? So I think even with like in BBH, like it's completely, I can be me. And I'll tell people all the time, how can I not be attracted to masculinity if I am masculine? You know what I'm saying? So I don't think I'm sexy? You know what I'm saying? So, and then I also approach people on a level of like, look, love is love. If I happen to fall in love with a cis man, it would just be what it is. It just ain't never happened.
But it's so New York, right? And I say this all the time, that I theorize that one of the reasons it happens, I was writing a whole dissertation on it, is that I might steal, is that, and I don't, this is not one-to-one, but it's like you can get white chicks who could be, working stock in a buzz cut at the little festival, hand in hand, since the 90s, right? I remember seeing them when I was like 8, and it was cool, and then when black women would do it, it was like, hell no, we won't go. But to me, part of that is privilege, is if you are white and you have been told that or it's your oyster, have whatever you like. You can find all kinds of things to be into and to taste and to try and to do. But when you haven't been invited to the table of privilege, then all of a sudden it's like, nope, this is it. We got these 2 things to choose from, and pick the prettiest one at that. Don't get no dog face now. And the other thing is, and I think the reason that it gets even deeper for folks who identify as boys, especially black folks or people of color, is because black masculinity is so preachy. It's like, first of all, it's impossible
the black masculinity that black men and boys and whoever are supposed to be trying to achieve this, that's why I really let them cry when they fall. But there's no cry when it hurts, this, you know, this, you're always, you know, you have no emotions, you holding it down no matter what, you know, and then like all of those negative connotations of literally what white people think about black masculinity that we've sort of embodied because of oppression and all these other things. That shit is so rigid. Why should you be able to fuck who you want? Right. That's gay. You know, like that is something that is challenging your masculinity if you have to meet somebody else's. Who's back in, who's softer? Who's the weak one? Who's the girl in the relationship?
Who's the top, who's the bottom?
You know what I'm saying? Like this is, it's just further shows you how deep it is, and this is such a crazy thing because it's quite literally the simplest concept ever, which is like let people just do them. Yeah. But it's like we live in a world that is opposite that. It's like this crazy, you know, like this is what's crazy because we actually don't exist in that. We never have and never will. So. And another thing, like it is more stuff in New York or whatever, but there is this whole like, just almost hilarious to me, this download scene of it. Like it's not even, you're not gonna see two studs swimming through the bill.
Let me take one. We sweat.
You can.
I'm like, get him, baby. Tell him.
You go in tennis shoes and a high heel pump and still be flying New York, and I think that there are some places that geographically allow for a lot more. Like it's cool to be the most extreme if you can, even if extreme is your norm. Right? You know what I mean?
And you're not gonna defend the boys that are stuff and stuff. But I also feel like we have to recognize where we are like generationally. So the same way that we have people that were the only, I'm sure, interracial couple wherever they were back in the day, right? And they were the only lesbian couple back in the day. They were the only interracial lesbian couple back in the day. Like that was the first. So you know, if exploring sexuality is something that you want to do, whoever you are, I think that you have to also be willing to be the trailblazer in that. You know what I mean? Like in that way. So if you are interested in dating people that don't fit in that butch femme sort of dichotomy, like you gotta be willing to do it. Somebody did it for you so that we could be in this room, and we gotta be willing, I think, to kind of carry that same torch.
But it's not, to me, it's not even just like who you are more attracted to or like what you want to explore as a sexual being on this planet, like what's sex or anything. It's about not even just that, how you have sex, how you identify with sex, what you think is important to you. You know what I'm saying? Like for instance, touch me not stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like that runs really, really deep, and nobody's really addressing like why do you feel like you can't be touched? Why can't you be touched? You know what I'm saying? How do you touch? Because I remember when I was growing up, nobody talked to me about how to have sex. I had to learn on my own, and that was disastrous. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
You okay now? Right.
I'm good. But you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But it's just like, you know, just dealing, especially with women and their sexuality, every woman is just so different, and they attack things so differently. It's like, oh, you're not touching me now, or oh, you touch me now. That's just like, I love you. You know
that's that self-care shit. That's the thing. Like, it's about just having those conversations, like talking about this shit. It's courage, like being able to be like, you know, this makes me feel whatever, and like really checking what it is. Like, check yourself when you thought to yourself when your friend said, yo, I think I might be in this stuff. What made you feel scared? Or like whatever feeling that you described, I can't remember. Well, think about like where concerned or whatever. You know what I'm saying? When it's like you ain't even actually have shit to do with that situation. So it's like where was it? Like how deep that stuff is, and that's a lot of the work that we're talking about when it comes to self-care, self-responsibility, and knowing who you are. Yeah, maybe these last few, and then we'll wrap.
I just wanted to point out a resource. I know it's here in Boston. I don't know if it's in New York or in other places, but there's an organization called Hollaback Boston. And they do a lot of things in terms of fighting street harassment. And one of the cool things that they have is this street harassment business card. So some people have their own ways of engaging it all, but the thing that they have on this card is that, you know, if somebody makes a comment, it has on there, you just committed an act of street harassment. To hear more stories about how this has affected lots of people, go to this website. So it could be like, I mean, that's like indirect way of handling
Yeah.
it, but it's still a way of handling it depending on your safety level.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, holla back into we did that when I was telling you I talked to that sea of whiteness.
Yeah.
That was, but it was good because we another couple groups in Brooklyn. There's a group called the Brooklyn Movement Center. They have a really dope. They have campaigns all the time, and they're really focused on working in Bed-Stuy or just working in neighborhoods where Black folks are. But they did this cool campaign in partnership with one of the photographers from Bklyn Boihood, where they literally took sidewalk chalk and wrote all over the sidewalk different things like "Don't call me," almost like the Tatiana. Stop telling women not to smile kind of concept, but really like writing things down that kind of made people walk over and be like, oh shit, like, you know, I'm not your bitch, or like really like, and there was little, they had little 12-year-old girls out there writing certain things, you know what I mean? So men would be walking by reading it, and then Charlotte would come in and gather interviews from either people that were just passing by, or like guys, and be like, have you ever harassed a woman? What was that like? Tell me, you know, this and the third. And put that out in the world. So there's a lot of work happening around that particular issue. And a lot of it starts with projects like what Hollaback Boston is doing. So thanks for sharing that.
I wanted to also tap in on talking about New York. And yes, when I first came out, to me, New York was like gay capital. Like, you can be gay in any kind of way if you're in New York. And as I grow in my sexuality, and I'm still growing today. And one of the things about Touch Me Not Studs, because I was here on the first LOCS, and we talked about Touch Me Not Studs. A lot of people are upset about Touch Me Not Studs. But my thing is, yes, we could discuss on why do you feel that way. But how about you also not shit all over me, excuse my language.
Don't shame people.
Because if I'm gonna touch me not, let me be that way. If you don't know my story, then let me be that way. Like, I get that you feel, well, if I want with a woman, I want to touch her. Well, that's great, then this is not the relationship
for you.
that we are going to work with. You know? So, yeah, there's some people who just say that because they think, well, you know, I'm going to be the man in this relationship, and I'm going to do all this, and you ain't going to touch me. But also people who might have a whole lot of other things behind that on the touch me not.
Trauma, anything.
Yeah. And I think under the umbrella being when I came out, I used to go to Glass, which is an organization here for young kids, 25 to age out. So I don't know when I did go, I remember one time I left, and outside they had a lot of transgender females, or just a lot of transsexual females. And I remember making a comment like, yo, she's bad, and somebody was like, that's transgender, like, I'm not supposed to like that, like, I'm sorry, my bad.
Right.
And then I seen the movie The Aggressive, again, New York people. And I was like, what? Because I seen a stud that was dating a transgender female, and I was like, what? So you can't do that?
You can do anything.
I just feel like, a lot of times we spend too much time policing each other, like, stud on stud. Same thing, like, I mean, I'm gay though, right? So, anything under the gay umbrella goes, right? Okay.
Or anything under the umbrella of love.
Alright, so, very simple comment about the whole, like, touch me not. Every time we hear anybody talk about it, it's always some type of like, well, what trauma was involved? What are you afraid of? Why can't it just be like everything else underneath the umbrella and be what it be? You don't want to be touched, you don't want to be touched. If the pleasure game is your thing, do you. Stop policing people. Like, it's insane. The amount of people I've actually heard, or with the way it was like, people got mad. It was like, what do you mean you can't be touched? What do you mean?
It's pretty heated.
What is that? Like, you know, you grow up and things change, but if that's your preference, that's your preference. I have no business policing what you do in the bedroom. Just be honest with your partner and do what you do. Let it be.
Word up. Thank y'all for sharing. That was dope. We're gonna actually wrap the session. We do have, this is the 2014 calendar. This is the 4th time that we've made this. The photographer is named King Texas, who's a young trans man out of Brooklyn who shoots all types of amazing people all the time. So the work in here is dope. And there's some really cool people featured in it. So you can come check it out, flip through it. There's slap and scale. And then we also have some custom made hoodies. And you can buy them from these cute little angels. But yeah,
Come on, Krishna, come on.
yeah, come on, sweatshirt. Definitely stay linked with us. You can follow us on everything at Bklyn Boihood. We're on almost every social media platform.